Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. Never laugh at the seed, because one day it may grow into the tree that shades your house. Chosen ones, let's talk about something people don't like to admit. Humiliation doesn't come from your success. It comes from their disbelief. Studies in human psychology show that rejection and doubt often say more about the doubter than the dreamer. And when reality proves the dreamer right, that's when pride suffers its greatest collapse. See, some people swore you were all talk. They rolled their eyes, whispered behind your back, maybe even chuckled, like you were auditioning for a role you didn't qualify for. To them, your confidence looked like comedy. But here's the twist. You weren't telling jokes. You were telling prophecy. And now the punchline isn't yours, it's theirs. The suspense, it's in the faces they make when they realize you are exactly who you said you were. That dawning moment when all the mockery, the gossip, the dismissals start playing back in their own minds like a bad blooper reel, and the spotlight of truth is shining directly on them. This isn't just about proving people wrong. It's about the raw, unfiltered reality that when you carry authenticity, time becomes your witness. And time has just walked into the room with receipts. So sit back, because what we're about to uncover is not just revelation. It's exposure, and let me tell you, it's going to sting for them, but for you, it's confirmation. Number one, their humiliation is proof of their investment in your failure. They wouldn't feel humiliated if they hadn't secretly invested so much energy into doubting you. That's the brutal truth. The embarrassment doesn't come from your rise alone. It comes from the fact that deep down, they bet everything on your failure. They needed you to lose in order to feel secure about themselves. They needed you to stay small so their limited vision of the world could stay intact. And now the very outcome they swore would never happen is staring them in the face, and it's burning their pride from the inside out. People rarely admit this, but disbelief isn't passive. When someone doubts you, they often attach their ego to that doubt. They start watching, waiting, even praying for proof that you'll never become what you said you would. It becomes a personal mission to be right about you. They talk, they gossip, they smirk, all while stacking up chips against your name. The louder you spoke about your destiny, the more they felt they had to shut you down in their own minds. So when the outcome flips, the humiliation feels heavier, not because of who you are now, but because of the investment they made in your downfall. What eats them up is the realization that your success doesn't just prove you right, it proves them wrong in public. It shows the weakness of their discernment, the fragility of their judgment, and the pettiness of their spirit. They can't escape the fact that they didn't just miscalculate. They built their identity on the prediction that you wouldn't make it. And the crash of that false identity is louder than anything you could ever say. This is why some people avoid you now or act uncomfortable when your name comes up. It's not that they don't see you, it's that they see themselves reflected in their failed bet against you. They know their words, their laughter. Their doubt didn't just bounce off harmlessly. They've circled back like a mirror, exposing who they really were. The humiliation isn't just about you shining, it's about their own shadow being exposed in the light of your truth. And that's a weight they can't laugh away. Number two, they see that doubting you was a reflection of their own smallness. When someone realizes you really are who you said you were, the humiliation they feel cuts deeper than just being wrong about you. What really stings is the discovery that their doubt was never about your potential. It was about their own limitations. They weren't questioning whether you had what it takes. They were projecting their own disbelief in themselves onto you. And now that the truth has surfaced, they can't escape the uncomfortable reality that their judgment was a mirror reflecting their own smallness. This is the kind of shame that lingers, because it forces them to confront why they couldn't see what was in front of them. The truth is, it wasn't that you didn't give signs of who you were becoming. You carried it in your words, in your confidence, and in the quiet resilience that kept you moving forward. But instead of recognizing it, they brushed it off, because acknowledging your greatness would have demanded they question their own complacency. It's easier to dismiss someone than to admit that maybe you're the one not reaching higher. That's why your emergence bothers them so much now. Every step you've taken into the fullness of who you are shines a light on their inability to recognize and respect greatness when it stood right next to them. It's humiliating because it reveals something most people never want to face. Their standards were too low, their vision too narrow, and their perspective too shallow. Your truth didn't expose their ignorance about you. It exposed their lack of belief in themselves. The human ego hates to admit it was blind, and even more so when that blindness was self-inflicted. They didn't just miss it, they refused to see it. And now the evidence of your authenticity leaves them with no defense. It's no longer about doubting your words, it's about realizing their doubt was a cage they built for themselves. And seeing you break free from that cage only makes their own walls feel tighter. This is the humiliation they're living with now. The realization that you didn't fall short. They did. They couldn't imagine greatness outside themselves. And now your very existence proves just how small their imagination really was. Number 3, their mockery was just a mask for fear, and now that mask has fallen. The mockery was never really about you. It was always about them trying to protect their own insecurity. That's the truth they're now forced to swallow. Every sarcastic comment, every dismissive laugh, every attempt to make you look foolish was nothing more than a mask they wore to hide the fear of what your potential represented. They wanted to convince themselves and others that you were a joke, because deep down they were terrified that you might actually become everything you said you would be. Now that reality has unfolded in front of them, the mask has been ripped off, and all that's left is exposure. Mockery has always been the weapon of the insecure. It's cheap, it's loud, and it requires no real effort. People who are grounded in themselves don't waste energy tearing others down. They're too focused on building their own lives. But the ones who laughed at you had nothing else to stand on. Their ridicule was a shield, a way to keep from looking at their own lack of vision or courage. And now that your truth is undeniable, that shield has shattered. The same words they used to make you look small now echo back as proof of their own fear. What humiliates them most is realizing that their mockery didn't stop you. They spent so much time convincing themselves that if they laughed enough, doubted enough, or gossiped enough, it would somehow derail you. But you kept moving forward, and now your life exposes the futility of their efforts. The joke has turned around, but this time it's not on you, it's on them. That's a bitter pill for the ego to swallow. It means they have to confront the fact that all their energy, all their dismissive behavior was wasted on trying to deny what they secretly knew might be true. And when the truth finally stands, there's nowhere left to hide. Their laughter no longer sounds confident. It sounds hollow, because it came from fear. This is the humiliation they live with now. The undeniable proof that what they mocked has matured into something undeniable. They thought mockery would protect them from facing their insecurity, but instead it has become the very evidence that exposes it. On number 4, they're learning that character outweighs performance. They tried to measure you by the moments you stumbled, the times you stayed quiet, and the mistakes everyone else rushed to highlight. Every setback became a supposed proof that you weren't capable, that your words were empty, and that your claims about yourself were exaggerated. They looked at the surface, the moments of struggle, and assumed that was the whole story. They mistook temporary challenges for permanent failure, and in doing so, they thought they had you all figured out. But what they didn't understand is that character can't be rushed, it can't be faked, and it certainly can't be judged by fleeting circumstances. While they were busy tallying your mistakes and counting your pauses, you were quietly building resilience, shaping your principles, and strengthening your foundation. Every silent season, every challenge endured, every moment when you chose integrity over convenience was stacking proof against their judgments. Performance is loud and visible, but character is the unseen engine that keeps you moving even when no one is watching. Now, as they watch you standing taller, growing stronger and shining brighter, the humiliation hits them harder than any failure ever could. They realize that the qualities they discounted, patience, consistency, moral strength, and inner discipline, are exactly what made you unshakable. While they were preoccupied with snapshots of your life, you were shaping the whole picture, and it's one they can't argue with. The revelation is brutal. No matter how loudly they talked, no matter how many errors they pointed out, character always outlasts performance. Integrity doesn't crumble under scrutiny, and consistency doesn't need applause to prove its worth. Their discomfort comes from the realization that true value can't be measured by quick wins or visible successes alone. They counted on short-term flaws to define you, but long-term truth doesn't work that way. The deeper lesson they're forced to see is simple yet painful. Performance can be fleeting, appearances can be deceiving, but character, real, unshakable character, is permanent, undeniable, and in the end, the thing that truly matters. Number 5. Their attempts to rewrite your story collapsed against reality. They spent countless hours twisting facts, spinning stories, and reshaping narratives to make themselves look smarter and you smaller. Every rumor, every exaggerated claim, every attempt to misrepresent your motives was a brick in the wall they hoped would contain your truth. They painted you as unreliable, incapable, or unworthy, believing that if enough people believed the story they told, it would become the reality. They convinced themselves that perception could overpower truth, that repetition could overwrite authenticity. But reality has a way of exposing those constructions, and your life refused to bend to their imagination. Now their entire narrative is collapsing in slow motion. Every carefully planted rumor, every manipulated detail, every whispered lie is being contradicted by the undeniable evidence of who you are and what you've accomplished. Their version of events, once confident and polished, now looks fragile, desperate, and absurd. They're left watching the truth shine where their fiction failed, choking on the humiliation of having tried to control a story that wasn't theirs to control. The weight of this revelation is heavier than they anticipated. It's not just about being proven wrong, it's about the public and personal acknowledgement that their attempts to distort reality didn't just fail, they backfired. Every person who believed their story is now faced with a contradiction they can't ignore, and the doubt they tried to sow has returned to them like a mirror, reflecting their own weakness and insecurity. What's truly painful for them is understanding that truth doesn't negotiate. No amount of spin, manipulation, or repetition can rewrite what has already happened or what is already becoming. The story they wanted to tell no longer exists because reality, yours, has written itself into being in the most undeniable way. They wanted to control perception, but perception is irrelevant when authenticity stands this tall. The collapse of their attempts leaves them not just embarrassed, but exposed, helpless, and painfully aware that reality is always the final authority. Number 6. They now realize they were fighting against evidence, not just faith. They spent so much time criticizing you, assuming your self-belief was nothing more than arrogance or empty boasting. Every confident word, every bold claim, every step you took toward your vision was interpreted as overconfidence or naivete. They didn't see it as proof of preparation, resilience, and strategy. They saw it as a challenge to their own understanding, something they needed to dismiss to feel comfortable in their assumptions. They were convinced that if they could belittle your confidence enough, they could convince themselves and others that it was all just talk. But as your life unfolded, it became impossible for them to ignore the truth. What they labeled arrogance was actually consistent effort. What they mocked as fantasy was meticulous planning. What they assumed would fail became undeniable results. Every step you took confirmed what you always knew about yourself, and every success added weight to the reality they had refused to see. Their doubt was never about you alone. It was about their refusal to recognize the evidence sitting right in front of them. Now, humiliation sets in because they realized they weren't just questioning your faith in yourself. They were fighting against proof. Your results became the language they could no longer translate into their limited worldview. Their dismissal, ridicule, and disbelief weren't protecting them from your ego. They were protecting themselves from confronting the fact that your life, your growth, and your achievements had already surpassed what they were willing to imagine. The worst part for them is that it isn't just that you succeeded. It's that you succeeded exactly as you said you would, in ways they insisted were impossible. Their attempts to write you off, to minimize your vision, to label your confidence as folly, now backfire as they face the reality they refuse to accept. The evidence has a way of humbling even the loudest critics, and in this case, it's doing so with a force they cannot escape. Your life doesn't just validate you. It exposes their denial in the most public, undeniable way. Their humiliation isn't fleeting. It's a slow, relentless acknowledgement that everything they fought against, every doubt, every whisper, every judgment, was not against empty words or blind hope. It was against hard, tangible evidence of your capability, consistency, and truth. And that reality hits harder than any argument ever could. Number 7, their exposure isn't just personal, it's collective. The moment they realize you are exactly who you said you were, the humiliation doesn't stay private. It spills into every circle they inhabit, every conversation they thought was under control, and every reputation they tried to manage. What they believed was a personal secret, a small victory in proving you wrong, suddenly becomes a public spectacle. Their disbelief, their gossip, and their attempts to minimize you are now being witnessed by people who respected or followed their judgment. And seeing them unravel in front of others adds a weight that personal shame alone could never achieve. They have to watch as their credibility falters. Every person they try to influence against you begins to see cracks in their arguments, inconsistencies in their claims, and the unmistakable evidence that they were wrong. Their position as someone in the know or in control evaporates, leaving them exposed. The embarrassment is intensified because it's no longer confined to their private frustration. It's a visible, undeniable truth that others are processing alongside them. Their misjudgment is on display, and there's no hiding from the ripple effect it creates. The collective nature of this exposure also forces them to confront their influence, or lack thereof. People who once sided with them now have to question why they believed the misrepresentations, why they allowed someone to be diminished based on false narratives. The realization is brutal. Their attempts to control perception didn't just fail privately. They failed publicly, and everyone who watched their efforts now sees the stark contrast between what they claimed and what actually exists. This type of humiliation is relentless because it keeps replaying. Every social interaction, every mention of your name, and every memory of their attempts to undermine you serves as a reminder of their failure. They aren't just wrong in isolation. They are wrong in front of a wider audience, and that audience sees the full picture of their miscalculation. The personal sting is amplified by the collective witness, and that combination makes the humiliation far deeper than anything they could have imagined when they first doubted you. Now, they are forced to reckon not only with your truth, but with the public collapse of their narrative. Their disbelief is no longer private frustration. It is a shared spectacle, a cautionary display of what happens when someone underestimates authenticity, consistency, and character. The exposure is complete, and they have nowhere to hide. Number 8, you became the mirror they avoided all along. Every step you've taken, every achievement, every moment of growth now acts like a reflection they cannot escape. They wanted to see you fail because it would make their own limitations feel less glaring, less real, but your rise refuses to accommodate their comfort. It forces them to confront the distance between who they are and who they could have been if they had acted with courage, vision, or integrity. The humiliation comes not from your success itself, but from the mirror it holds up to their own unrealized potential. They notice it in subtle ways. A pause when your name is mentioned, a flicker of recognition that they aren't where they could have been, a quiet envy disguised as indifference. Each time they see your life thriving while theirs remains stagnant or half-lived, they are confronted with the consequences of choices avoided, risks never taken, and talents ignored. Your existence becomes a scoreboard, silently keeping track of what they ignored in themselves. The more you shine, the more vivid the contrast becomes. Your accomplishments are not just victories over circumstance, they are evidence of what consistent effort, self-belief, and integrity can produce. And that evidence is devastating to anyone who has spent their life justifying mediocrity or avoiding responsibility. It isn't merely that you proved them wrong, it's that your life forces them to measure themselves against you and fail that test. The weight of this realization is often accompanied by defensiveness. They might try to rationalize your success, minimize your achievements, or dismiss them as luck. But deep down, they know the truth. Your growth exposes the gaps in their own journey. They cannot deny the reflection you cast because it's precise, clear, and unavoidable. This is why their humiliation lingers. It isn't fleeting embarrassment or a single moment of being proven wrong. It's a constant gnawing awareness that while you moved forward, they remained behind, trapped in comparison and regret. Your life, your authenticity, and your relentless forward motion are a mirror showing exactly what they wasted, and the truth of that reflection stings far more than any public defeat ever could. And number 9, they underestimated that faith in self is a weapon. They always thought your faith in yourself was naive or even arrogant. They assumed that believing in your own vision was a kind of foolishness, a soft excuse for lack of preparation or skill. They laughed at your confidence, dismissed your determination, and treated your self-assurance like a joke they didn't have to take seriously. In their eyes, faith in oneself was harmless, even entertaining, because they couldn't see it as a force that could move mountains. Now, as they watch the life you're building, the accomplishments you're stacking, and the reality you're shaping, the truth hits them hard. Faith in yourself is not fantasy, it is a weapon. It's the driving force behind consistency, resilience, and courage. It turns words into actions, ideas into results, and vision into reality. The same confidence they ridiculed is exactly what made you unstoppable, and the results are undeniable. Every success, every milestone, every time your life proves your declarations true, becomes a silent rebuke to the cynicism they carried. Their humiliation comes from the fact that what they mocked now commands respect. The joke they thought they were part of is no longer funny. It's a reality they cannot argue with. They tried to diminish your belief as overconfidence, but what they are seeing is the power of steadfast self-faith in action. And there's nothing they can do to take it back. The deeper sting is watching others recognize what they refused to see. People who once shared their skepticism now witness the truth, and the respect flows toward you, not them. They realize that the weapon they ignored, the force they dismissed, was always real, and it was always in your hands. Their laughter, once aimed at you, now turns into silence because nothing they can say or do changes the results their mockery helped illuminate. This is the essence of their humiliation. They underestimated something they couldn't measure, couldn't control, and couldn't touch. Your faith in yourself wasn't just a belief, it was a force that reshaped reality, and the very people who dismissed it are left witnessing their own error. Every success you manifest is a reminder that faith in self isn't just mindset, hope, or wishful thinking. It's an undeniable power that turns ridicule into respect. Number 10, their ego can't process that you won without their approval. They believed that any success you achieved had to pass through their approval. In their minds, accomplishment wasn't just about effort, vision, or skill. It was about recognition, about them nodding, endorsing, and giving permission. They positioned themselves as gatekeepers, assuming that without their validation, nothing you did could hold real value. Every step you took without their input, every victory you claimed without their acknowledgement became a threat to their carefully constructed sense of importance. Now, seeing you thrive without waiting for their stamp, they're forced to confront a truth they never wanted to face. Your success doesn't need them. Their approval was never a requirement, and their opinion never held the weight they imagined. This realization strikes at the core of their ego. The humiliation isn't just that you succeeded, it's that you succeeded entirely on your own terms, bypassing the very people who thought they controlled the narrative of your life. What makes this particularly unbearable is the exposure of their irrelevance. They assumed influence, but your results revealed that influence was never real. They positioned themselves as essential validators, yet your achievements demonstrate that their role was optional and their judgment inconsequential. Every milestone you reach becomes a mirror reflecting not only your power but their unnecessary interference, highlighting the emptiness of their assumed authority. The irony is sharp. They tried to assert control over your path, to determine which of your actions counted, and now that control has evaporated. Your independence isn't just freedom. It's proof that their ego had no claim over you at all. Their discomfort grows every time someone acknowledges your achievements, and the lack of their involvement only emphasizes how misplaced their sense of importance was. The humiliation lingers because this isn't a fleeting realization. It's a permanent shift in perspective. They must now live with the undeniable fact that they were never the gatekeepers they thought they were. Your success, accomplished entirely without their permission, exposes the fragility of their pride and the irrelevance of their judgment. And in that exposure, they're left powerless, watching the very person they tried to control rise independently and unshakably. Number 11, the humiliation is generational, not just emotional. Their humiliation doesn't stop at the personal level, but it stretches far beyond that, touching everyone around them. When someone misjudges a chosen one, it becomes a story that doesn't die quietly. It's a narrative that seeps into families, communities, and social circles, carried by whispers, conversations, and the inevitable comparisons. Every time your name comes up, every time someone recounts the truth of who you are, they're reminded that they miscalculated, misjudged, and doubted someone exceptional. That embarrassment isn't contained to a private thought. It's witnessed, remembered, and repeated. Their children, siblings, colleagues, and friends all become inadvertent spectators of this reckoning. People they respect may question their judgment or even laugh quietly at the contrast between their expectations and reality. The story of their misjudgment spreads quietly at first, then loudly, because truth has a way of making its presence known, and with each retelling the sting of their error grows, embedding itself in reputations and long-term social memory. It's not just a lesson about you, it's a reflection on them. They must now reconcile their own credibility with the undeniable evidence of your authenticity. This isn't something that disappears overnight. It lingers in the eyes of those around them, in the subtle shifts in respect, and in the quiet acknowledgments that they were wrong. The embarrassment compounds because it is repeated across contexts and generations, a reminder that their skepticism was misplaced, and their attempts to diminish you failed. What makes this even more painful is the permanence of it. Unlike temporary mistakes or fleeting missteps, misjudging someone chosen leaves a mark that doesn't fade. Even as time moves forward, the story circulates, becomes part of the social record, and quietly teaches others about what happens when someone underestimates integrity, vision, and strength. Their humiliation becomes woven into the fabric of social memory, passed along, recognized, and revisited every time your truth is acknowledged. This is why it's generational, not merely emotional. Their embarrassment extends beyond their own moment of recognition. It becomes a lasting legacy of miscalculation. And while it stings them endlessly, it stands as a subtle monument to your resilience, growth, and undeniable authenticity. Number 12, they now know the cost of misidentifying greatness. They're finally realizing that misjudging you wasn't just a small mistake. It carried consequences far heavier than they ever imagined. Misidentifying an ordinary person might be shrugged off, laughed about, or quickly forgotten. But misjudging someone chosen cuts deeper because it exposes a failure in their perception, their judgment, and even their understanding of what matters. The gap between who they thought you were and who you truly are now stands like a glaring monument to their error, impossible to ignore or downplay. This isn't just a personal embarrassment. Their miscalculation calls into question their discernment. People who pride themselves on knowing who is capable, who is trustworthy, or who carries influence are suddenly forced to acknowledge that their judgment is flawed. Every word of doubt, every whisper of dismissal, every attempt to undermine you now becomes evidence not of your shortcomings, but of theirs. Their credibility suffers because the world can see the mismatch between their assumptions and reality. Beyond credibility, it shakes something deeper, spiritual sensitivity. Misjudging a chosen one isn't merely a social or professional lapse. It's a misalignment with truths that are larger than themselves. They underestimated what was visible only to those attuned to character, destiny, and authenticity. Their error signals that they missed what they were meant to recognize, and that missed recognition carries weight. It's a subtle but undeniable mark of disqualification because they were unable to see, honor, or respect what was right in front of them. The humiliation here is permanent, because it's not just about being proven wrong. It's about the revelation that their judgment, their assumptions, and even their intuition failed in a way that can't be erased. The world now knows, and so do they, that misjudging a chosen one leaves consequences far beyond immediate embarrassment. It stains their reputation, it undermines the authority they once claimed, and it forces them to confront a truth they cannot undo. Greatness cannot be hidden indefinitely, and those who misidentify it cannot escape the shadow of their error. In the eyes of truth, this isn't merely being wrong. It's a subtle disqualification. They've been exposed, not just for their skepticism, but for their inability to perceive, honor, and respect what was manifesting in front of them all along. The weight of that realization is a humiliation that lingers, persistent and undeniable. Number 13, they can no longer pretend they didn't see it. Denial was their refuge for so long it let them sleep at night, convinced that your claims about yourself were empty, that your confidence was arrogance, that your vision was unrealistic. They told themselves that as long as they didn't acknowledge your potential, it didn't exist. Every dismissive remark, every smirk, every attempt to minimize you was backed by that false comfort, the belief that ignorance could shield them from reality. But reality has a way of breaking through. Your growth, your achievements, and the undeniable truth of who you are now shout louder than any words, louder than any rationalization. The evidence can't be ignored, twisted, or silenced. It pierces through the lies they told themselves and the stories they tried to circulate about you. Denial is no longer an option because the truth is standing in front of them, undeniable and undeniable in its power. Their humiliation is inseparable from this forced acknowledgement. They can no longer act as if they didn't know, as if they weren't aware, as if their doubts had been reasonable. Every glance, every recognition of your success, every whisper that confirms your authenticity is a reminder that they chose to look away when they should have seen. And now they are haunted by the memory of their own blindness, the countless moments they laughed, mocked, or ignored what was clearly unfolding before them. What makes this especially painful is permanence. Unlike a fleeting embarrassment that can be shrugged off, this truth will follow them. Every time your name is mentioned, every time your achievements are celebrated, they are reminded of the deliberate ignorance they clung to. There is no retreat, no backspace, no chance to pretend they were unaware. The memory of their denial is now inseparable from the evidence of your success. The irony is sharp. Their own attempts to protect themselves from the discomfort of your potential have left them exposed. They can no longer hide behind disbelief, because you are living proof that everything they ignored, dismissed, or mocked was real all along. Their humiliation isn't just emotional, it is enduring, and it exists in every space where your truth shines and their blindness is remembered. Number 14, their humiliation is the universe balancing the scales. Their humiliation goes far beyond personal embarrassment. Every smirk, every whispered doubt, every attempt to minimize or mock you carried weight, not just socially, but on a level that transcends human judgment. Every act of disbelief or derision became a deposit against them in a ledger they didn't realize existed. The universe doesn't forget what is authentic, and it doesn't allow deliberate attempts to undermine truth to go unnoticed. What they dismissed in private is now being corrected in a way that is both undeniable and public. This is why their discomfort feels heavier than simple embarrassment. It's a reckoning, a cosmic accounting that cannot be escaped. They believed that mockery and skepticism could shield them, that their words and actions could diminish your reality. But authenticity has its own power, and it calls for accountability. What they once treated lightly, their disbelief, their manipulation, their ridicule, now becomes the very mechanism through which they are humbled. The humiliation is the universe itself leveling the playing field. There's a precision in this correction that makes it even more piercing. It's not chaotic or random, it's perfectly timed to reveal the gap between their intentions and reality. Every observer sees the truth, every outcome validates it, and every misstep they made in underestimating you is laid bare. Their attempts to control perception, to bend narratives, or to diminish what was real are now undone by the clarity of your presence. The universe ensures that the balance is not subtle, it is unmistakable, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. The lesson embedded in this humiliation is undeniable. Authenticity cannot be mocked without consequence. What they ridiculed, doubted, and minimized is now elevated, and the ones who tried to suppress it are exposed. Their experience is a demonstration of a larger law, that truth, integrity, and purpose cannot be derailed by skepticism or ridicule. In this way, their shame is not arbitrary, it is inevitable. The universe simply ensures that those who attempt to diminish the real are confronted with the evidence of what they tried to deny. Their public humiliation is, in essence, cosmic justice made tangible. It reminds everyone watching that nothing authentic can be suppressed indefinitely, and that the energy spent undermining another's truth is always returned in kind. The scales are balanced, and they are the ones feeling the weight. At the heart of all this is an undeniable truth. You were never meant to fit into the limited expectations of those who doubted you. Every smirk, every whisper, every attempt to diminish or dismiss your essence has only magnified your authenticity. They invested in your failure, tried to rewrite your story, and built walls around what they assumed was impossible. But your life, your consistency, your integrity, and your unwavering belief in yourself have shattered all of that. Their humiliation is not random. It's the natural consequence of underestimating a chosen one, of mistaking confidence for arrogance, and of failing to recognize what cannot be hidden. They are left exposed, forced to reckon not just with their disbelief, but with the truth of their own limitations. Their judgment has been proven flawed, their narratives have collapsed, and the echoes of their miscalculation will follow them for a long time. Meanwhile, your reality stands unshakable, a living testament to the power of faith, perseverance, and character. You became the mirror they refused to face, the proof they couldn't deny, and the embodiment of everything they failed to imagine in themselves. This story isn't only about proving people wrong. It's about the universal principle that authenticity cannot be contained and integrity cannot be silenced. The humiliation they experience is more than personal embarrassment. It is the universe balancing the scales, a public reckoning for those who doubted, mocked, and underestimated what is real. Your growth, your achievements, and your unwavering truth have rewritten the narrative entirely, and their disbelief has become a cautionary monument to their own short-sightedness. Remember this: being a chosen one is not just about surviving the doubt of others. It's about rising in ways that make their skepticism irrelevant, their ridicule powerless, and their denial impossible. Your life commands respect because it aligns with truth, and that alignment is something no mockery, no rumor, and no disbelief can ever undo. If this resonates, make sure to subscribe for more revelations like this video, comment your thoughts, and share it with anyone who needs to see the undeniable power of authenticity in action. The truth will always shine, and watching it unfold is nothing short of extraordinary. God bless you.